Hello there. I'm missing my tea. I'll be right back. It'll take me 1 second. Without my tea, I can't paint. Crisis averted. Oof. That was almost bad. Without tea, there's no painting. So I have this Foetid Bloat drone. This is what his base looks like. I actually did somebody's base ahead of time for once, because I'm starting to learn about and care a lot more about bases a bit. Yeah. Um, that time I had to run and get the tea. Yeah, this morning I had a weird situation where I got up, got in my office, and I had been streaming for an hour without turning it on. But hey, that's awkward. I put a ticket in. Weird stuff. I mean, I work with software, so I'm familiar with things being buggy. But yeah, I didn't have to go through any of the gazillion clicks it takes me to get this stuff started. Is what it is. You roll with it. I'm going to set this thing aside over here. Boop. Keep him in the shot. And actually, real quick, there's sort of the finished look with the base done of the almighty Mr. Bughead. He may get a couple more drips and drops of Tesseract glow on the end of that axe to make it properly gloppy. But he's got a nice sheen to him. His eyes are glowy. Pretty cool stuff. Apparently they do make like photosensitive paint also, so I may look into that at some point. Not for him, but just in general. So this Foetid Bloat drone, he's going to be fitted for now with 2 spewers. I had some mishaps with the lawnmower. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with it, but I clipped some off trying to get magnets to work. I didn't. So for now, just going to glue these guys on. I'll probably crazy glue them on so that I can just put this thing in the freezer and pop them off later. But I need to figure out what I'm going to do about making him weapon swappable some other time. So I have the super thick green glop. This is now mega thick. I realized I hadn't been shaking this stuff up quite enough every time I used it. So now that I'm at the bottom of the barrel, it's pretty thick and soupy, but that's cool. I dig that. So also, just as a preface, I'm not trying to make him identical, but I want this guy to match this dude. So I'm going to go for a lot of the same sort of scheme. In this case, these 2 fans on the side will be this nice dark Death Guard green. The spewers will be. But then the center will have this sort of lighter, old school Death Guard-ish sepia tone kind of thing going. So right out the gate, there's lots to do here. It happens, man. I personally love that kind of stuff. Waking up thinking I'm still asleep. How much of this is actually metal in their rendition? That's the big question right now. Of course, they probably on here don't even have a reference picture for me. Look, I got it right there. Doink, doink. Yeah, a lot of the front of it's metal, so it's basically just the body. And I think I'm going to do it the same way. I do need enough green on this section for it to come together, the whole look to come together. So we're just glopping this heavy green stuff on. And it is soupy muddy, so it'll get into every crevice. And obviously this thing will get a wash afterwards. This grime on top of a baseline of Death Guard green, pretty nice color. It's livid, very alive green, but also swampy, which I like a lot. So many thoughts. This is actually going to get a lot of metallics on it, which I like. A lot of interesting hardware on this weapon. I'm going to have to thin this out a little bit. It's kind of funny. It doesn't really thin out with water. Curious. Curious indeed. I'll get all the way down here. We'll just move on to the next one. Yeah, metal. Metal good. Let's see. Yep, I'm all the way around this guy. Wondering. Yeah, that should be fine. I actually have tomorrow off, which is cool. And then I have enough time for the first Saturday in quite some time, almost a month, I think, at this point, to actually go play another game of Warhammer down at my local-ish game store. So I'm excited for that. We've got to think a little bit ahead of time. I'm probably only going to be playing a 500-point army. We try to get as many new people in as we can. So we may end up doing a 4-way 500-point match again, just so that it can happen in a reasonable amount of time. So that's exciting. I did well in my last one, but there's still a lot of stuff to learn. That's all spiky. But I'm still going to go all the way around this part in green. Normally anything spiky I do metallic, but with how metallic that's going to be behind it, it's actually going to look really good with a dark green stripe of this body of stuff. It's also thicker than most of the metal banding. Sort of hugs the side of the tank. That's how I'm doing it. And I love this stuff. And I do need to order. I need to go on Amazon like right after this and order more of this stuff. And then I can take all the glops out of that on the bottom of this one. Just dump it in the new pot. Call it a day. So this guy's going to be very anti-infantry. Very much so. That's all metal. That's all metal. This little thing down here, this little bulbous guy can... Nah, I'm going to do him metal too. I'll do him metal too. Now, if I have tool of the trade... There we go. Never thought I'd get that much use out of one of these things, but when you have a single piece that you're painting and you want it to dry, it's not too bad. It's not too bad having one of those at all. Now, I'm a pretty big fan of just about all metal. Even like the stuff coming out of, pay attention to this camera, the stuff coming out of Korea and stuff like that I find really interesting. Old school stuff, absolutely. Sign me up. I ordered an airbrush. So pretty soon you'll get to watch me suffer through trying to learn how to use one of those. They're actually a lot more affordable than they used to be. I don't know if it'll stream well. Might be a decent amount of background noise, and I'll be wearing a mask, but I'm still gonna try it because why not? There we go, right around there. Any little bits that sort of get over, those get paved over by any sort of metal paint that I use. Probably be some lead belcher and some warplock bronze if I had to take a wild guess. By wild guess, it means I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I'm doing. All right, get the body of this gun all the way around those skulls. The other nice thing about this, going with 2 sprayers on this, is that it is a pile of Overwatch shots. So I can, in theory, and I think I want to give it a try, If I can find an objective, even if I don't take the objective with this guy, if I can sort of stay near it, um, or at least some decent lane of travel on the map, just use them to overwatch stuff. And obviously, you know, it's primarily useful on infantry with this thing, but it's essentially going to get 12 hits on an overwatch. Uh, Not attacks, hits. Like this thing is devastating to infantry. I actually used Overwatch with my Plague Burst Crawler. I think I did in my last game, and it was pretty gnarly. Some dude just decided to run across him. He was behind a piece of terrain. The guy was like, "I'm just gonna cross the map here," and I was like, "No, you ain't. No, you ain't. Not without losing some bodies." I will get this top edge here as well. And I can clip this guy up nicely. Okay, just take a look over here, over there. Got both sides. Get underneath this thing a little bit. We'll clip him up to dry as well. All those times in the last couple of weeks, I've had pieces that have been laying strangely across pots and things like that. Like, nope, didn't have to do that. Could just. You could just. How are these spikes going to go? I'll probably do those spikes in white. You could just clip them up. It's an amazingly useful tool. This stuff does not operate like paint. It is gloppy. I mean, it's closer to a paint right now with how thick it is. But really, you just sort of press it in like a very thick wash. Do its thing. I may go over those little sections of something else, but I need them to be darker at the base no matter what. I think. I'm definitely super excited to play another game. It's been too long. There's just been too many things to do on Saturdays, things to get done around the house. I'm pretty sure I'm going metallic on the inside of this as well, but I want to make sure everything in here is dark enough so any spots that I miss or any place where it gets close or any place that I use the metallics, it's got the same darkness and roughness below it. Get in there, and you can definitely see like that. That is some grimy green, all in those turbines or fans. I guess they're just fans. I think they're actually turbines. I should know what a turbine is as opposed to just a fan. Turbine versus a jet. I worked at a company that was called Turbine. Apparently, none of that stuck. All right, so we glopped a decent amount of that on. Look at this part. Close on here. So I've also got there's a lot of white, obviously, that I got to do on here, and then eventually sepia up. There's also, this guy's got a decent amount of flesh on him. And that should be interesting. He's got, when I finish this little section of green, I'll peek around here a bit. Just want to look through here and make sure I've covered my bases. All right, so he's got the flesh that's all like his face and then underneath here. He's got a little bit of green. Well, that'll be white in this case down here. But then all this is just bag of guts. So that's going to get some light color, maybe like iron rack skin, and probably some Gilliman flesh. I'll probably shade it with Reichland flesh shade, which should give it a nice, like, gnarly stretched skin look. But all this whole section here, obviously not these tanks and tubes, but then all the way around there, it's all just attached skin. The other little treat, I got these two little bugs that we're gonna have to paint. I will save those guys till like the very end. But yeah, so there's a lot of like neat, cute stuff on here to enjoy. Thanks to the folks that were around for the poll that picked the bug version. There's actually 3 different plates that this model comes with for the front here. So you get a lot of different looks. And also a lot of different kit bashing parts for the future. Get all that in there. There we go. And yes, this brush is going to get beat to heck, but any of the ones you see I have that are green like this, these are my beater brushes. They only get like 1 or 2 little tiny uses of normal duty, and then they always end up with stuff like pushing grime around, pushing metallics around, pushing rust around. I just find that they're very durable, but they don't hold up well in terms of like a really strong tip and all that stuff. But they only degrade a bit, and then they kind of stay in that phase that's just like mediocre, okay brush for quite some time. It's like a knife with a not very low edge on it. It's like, yep, keep chopping trees down with it. You don't want to cut your sushi with it more than once or twice. Oh, yeah, more spots that I missed. Let's get a nice, clean cooking of this stuff. So green. Smells funny too. I don't think it's varnish. I think it is actually just. I don't know. It smells like the outdoors, and I don't mean like some piney soap product. It kind of smells like muck. I wonder if they just have a big like murky pond out in the back and they just pull some silt out of it, just use it. Certainly authentic. Yeah, this stuff is piles thick. There we go. Bloat. Bloat. All right, we're in. Spin them around, look at them from every angle. No, I missed a spot somewhere. I just don't want to miss like a huge chunk. I will get more detail work. These spikes are going to be a total pain in the butt to get underneath. I know that now, but it's just the way that goes. That's how it was with the Plague Brush Crawler. See, I found even on the first one I did, a whole section I just whiffed on. There we go. Darn these eyes. Looking through. It is also a little bit of a challenge doing like a green on green color, sort of recessed on here. A lot of times you got to wait for it to dry to really see what you hit and what you missed. All right, that looks pretty good. Pretty good. You can sit gently like that for just a minute, buddy. Clean this brush up. Give a little dab in some thinner. Just a little bit, just to loosen some of that stuff up a little. I use a very mild thinner at this point before I drop them in the wash. Oh yeah, that stuff's coming right off there. All right, so I'll leave this out. But I think what I want to do, is I'm going to leave that green stuff to dry for a bit. But I do have a bunch of white to get done. These don't seem that different. This one's a little redder, this one's a little greener. And I like our Iron Rack skin a lot. Much as it may tilt this a little bit away from that other guy that I'm trying to match, I'm going to give this a shot. Make sure that there's enough. Where's that squeezy bottles? This just has water in it, but dampen up this wet palette a bit more. There we go. Now you're happy. I have a wide array of squeezy bottles full of stuff. All right, I need a proper base brush. Citadel base brush, you're the one. All right, so what I'm going to do is hit all the metal plating with iron rack skin. I'm also going to hit all the fleshy parts with it. Though the metallic parts, well, not metallics, the armor part is going to get Seraphim Sepia absolutely fine. And then this is going to get a much redder, fleshier treatment later. Get a glop of this, get him a wet palette, get in the mood. This may take more than one pass. It might. I'm going over green, not black, but it's still like relatively dark. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. Yeah, it's probably going to need more than one pass. Let's see how it cures in. Try not to overdo it and make it like a super thick matte finish like I would for like Space Marine armor. You know what? You can hit that spike too. That thing's got to turn into bone. As do these horns. So these horns will probably only get one pass on this. All this stuff. I'll leave the bugs. Leave the bugs alone. All these teeth will get it. Yeah, this is like the keep ranking on 12-year-olds. Let's pick a different age. It's like a 13-year-old's like got the brushes out kind of paint job right here. But this is like very much ye ugly base coat. Just to get the party started. I am being careful, but I don't have to be too careful. A lot of what's going to differentiate these teeth from this armor is going to be the washes and subsequent other painting I do over this. Get a little bit off my brush over here and then come back to it. Just get this guy nice. Spin this guy around. This is actually convenient that I can hold the back of this model like this. Very convenient. You can actually hold on to it from the bottom too, though that's a little scarier. It just feels so thin and dainty. I mean, this guy literally stands up. This model stands on these things. Glue it down to the base like that. I'm a little bit wary. Oh, I'm also going to hit just a little bit on the edge of the sort of tonguey, tentacly things. I don't have to hit the whole thing, but just by giving it a dab of white right now, it'll make it a little interesting to get some color contrast going on it because the entire base of it won't be the exact same color. All right, now I can scooch this stuff around a bit. This is a weird angle to try to get the camera and myself able to see it at the same time, but we'll try. Probably gonna hit those vents. I think I will. Time to grab them by the noodles. Go back to this way. Now those will all be metal. Those will be metal. That's all flesh down there, which I will hit with this same paint. But I want to make sure that I'm counting this whole section before I move on. Oh, I hear my kitten whining out there somewhere. He's still got that like squeal rather than straight up meow. Really high pitched, cute little sound. Okay, so that can go on there. Get around this thing now. I can't hold that anymore, so I should do the entire main torso before I get to this. That would be SMRT Smart. Not unlike the Myphitic Blight Hauler, this model, I wouldn't call it a beginner model. Like the Blight Hauler, I thought was an absolute beginner's dream because the parts are big enough that you're not doing too much microscopic work. You can sort of like see what you're doing as someone who's new and doesn't have their head around everything yet. Or like me, who probably never will have their head around everything. But this is very similar. It's more complicated, but like the teeth and the eyes are a heck of a lot bigger than those little teeth and eyes. There's a lot you can sort of just get in here and grok, understand what you're painting a lot easier. I'm going to get this torso first. All this weird glop that's sticking to this tank. I'll get a little bit of color on there too, but I don't need to get it completely covered. That will probably get Tesseract Glow or some other shiny gross thing. So it'll get taken care of, but having a asymmetrical sort of baseline color on it is a good thing. Running out of places to grab. Speaking of which, I just grabbed those horns. Those horns need help. Alrighty. In that little area there. Spin it around. Not bad for a first coat. You around. Alright, now we're going to try to get all of this fleshy stuff that's underneath here. Start from this side. In fact, that whole plate, that's got to get got. That in there's got to get got. This is just going to be slopping a bunch of this stuff on and trying desperately, at least somewhatly, to not hit the green I just painted. That would be wise. I drove a little too fast there. Got a little too hyped to go quick. Sometimes you gotta go slow to go fast. So I'm told. In there, all that skin. But yeah, the pieces are nice and beefy on this. Definitely, you can get around without freaking out too much. Oh, you look terrible, buddy. You've got the first coat blues. Thin this out a little bit more. Embrace the first coat. Maybe thin it out too much, but embracing that first coat. A little too thin. There we go. Get some pigment back on this bad boy. Back in business. Be a little more careful on this side. All right, under here's a really good, interesting spot. I love the fact that like the undercarriages of a bunch of Death Guard demon engines are just straight up guts. So cool. What an aesthetic. I'll just get in here. Now I can go up against this fan. I am going to hit that guy. That guy's going to be light like everything else here. Gloppy gloppy. Where's the jalopy? This thing. This whole plate and the skin right here. That's convenient. And hit the turbine a little bit again. But cope with it. Alrighty. Alrighty. Just a little spinneroony. Just keep peeking around, finding little spots where you should eke in. I'm probably only going to give this a minute or two to dry a little bit. In fact, if I am going to do that, then I definitely want to hit this fan first. But I will pin it back up, give it a minute or two to dry, and then I'll just come right back around with another coat. There's no huge reason to wait on that, like especially if this is like watered down decently. Hit this stuff. Getting that second coat will feel good. You do want to let it dry, but I'm not like gonna let it sit here overnight when I know I'm doing 2 coats, and it's going to be washed pretty heavily, and it's somewhat biological. Don't need absolute perfect coverage, and in fact, it stops looking biological as soon as you get there. Like any of the spots that truly look mechanical, I try to do with metallics, because that is like absolute coverage. Can't really see through that stuff. I mean, you can, but you can't. But anything that's like pushing the border between some sort of flesh and some sort of ceramite, that's a good place to specifically not go for perfect coverage. Alrighty. I am psyched about this model. It's really cool. A little disappointed I'm not starting them with the lawnmower, but I'll figure that out later. Apparently tank shock with this thing sounds pretty diesel because you pick one of your melee weapons and I think the lawnmower hits like 7 times. You just like back up, fly away, drive in. Do it over and over again. When it flies, you can charge after you fall back. So the idea of just sneaking out a little bit, spraying down a whole infantry squad, and waiting for them to sort of get closer, and then just like backing away, spraying them down again. That sounds fun too. And the main thing is, it's a threat, and it can fly, and it moves a lot faster than almost everything else. Everything else on foot in my army. So I can actually have it get around and do some stuff, even if it's just harassment. In there, getting little cracks a little bit. Yeah, this shouldn't need long to sit. Take one gun down. Put one bloat drone up. Can you hang on to it by that? Yeah, you can. This guy a little wash, sip a little tea. Wash him, give him a little dab in some thinner. Just to get the base of this brush a little cleaner. Back to my water. And maybe one more little dab in here. It's not super strong thinner. It's not even really paint thinner. I mean, it is, but it's airbrush thinner. It's relatively mild. But it does work. You give it a little bit of time and a shallow little scrub around in this stuff. And then you put it in your water to clean it. Bring out the airbrush. I know, it's showing up tomorrow, dude. It's showing up overnight. That will be a session, and I'm doing it right. I got a hood for it. Like, a lot of this stuff got a lot more affordable. I got a hood for it that basically sucks the air away from it through a filter, and then it can just go straight out the window, which, truth be told, there's my window, so that's perfect. So I totally jack this camera around. It's better a little bit. New camera setup. So that's showing up tomorrow. And I got a mask, so it'll be funny because I'll be on a stream and be like, wah, 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 with an air compressor going in the background. That'll be fun. It does pose a challenge. If that air compressor is too loud, I won't be able to do that stuff at night. So, like, what I'll probably end up doing is set that thing up on the weekends for like a day stream and just do all of my airbrushing, excuse me, on the weekend. But like being able to prime with just an airbrush and be able to do that indoors, oh my god, that just alone, it's probably not too loud. I've heard that the one that I've got is like relatively quiet. Um, so we'll see. I'm still gonna stream with everything set up. Like, I gotta do it. I gotta find out. And if it's not too loud, and I am in a room with a closable door that's on one side of the house, like I'll just put the compressor underneath here. But basically, I will clear off this desk, put the hood up, and then at that point, I'll only need like 3 to 5 colors for airbrushing. Um, yeah, they are crazy quiet nowadays. True that. Let's get a sip of tea in here. All right. Well, let's go for coat number 2. The most exciting work, but pays the bills. It is pretty exciting to me. No, that's certainly true. So the compressor will definitely be underneath the table. I think what I'm going to set it on when I stream is the thing that I stand up when I've got my standing desk going also. So it shouldn't really push things around at all. It'll be on the ground, which is carpeted, and then beyond that, uh, sitting on a foam thing. So it should be okay. I'm not too worried about the vibration from it. Famous last words, but I mean they're not that famous. But I think I'm right about that part. I guess is the better way to phrase that. All right, coat 2 looking much better than just one coat. These guys I can do sort of meagerly. I do have to be careful because this green is still kind of damp. That is thick stuff. This white is okay though. What I'll do when I veer away from this white and let it dry is I'll start doing some metallics on the other stuff. Dab of water to thin this out. Thin your paints. Once again, like I'm being pretty haphazard with this part because it's flesh. The tiniest little sort of aberrations on the parts that are fleshy, I just find that they look really good. Having it be like metallic looking underneath. And don't get me wrong, there are absolutely people that do beautiful models that look plasticky. And I dig them a lot, but like that's a specific style and it's not what I'm going for here. I'm trying to be consistent. This armor part is not too biological, so I'm going for a thicker coat around these plates. There we go. Just get around there. This guy is so precarious. So precarious. Just hanging on to him by these little strings and this spike on top. I swear I'm not trying to give you the heebie-jeebies, Maury. But this is Mortarian all over again with like I hang out on my tiny little bits. So yeah, so not quite meat wagon, but it is the underbelly is gonna look like a belly. It's gonna look like flesh for realsies. So I'll probably do it more aggressively than I did this guy, but that's like pretty fleshy looking. Um, it'll be in line with that, and it'll have like pustules and stuff. Um, so yeah, that part will be fun, and that's why like they're all getting the same type of base coat, but that's why I'm like laying it on the second coat a little bit more consistently on like the fans and the front plates and all that Speaking of consistently, I totally missed a spot. Boop. I do love them rotten. You darn tootin'. So much fun, man. Like I feel like other careers that I would have really enjoyed would be like even just working on indie stuff, like being one of those people who makes all the gory stuff for films. Oh, it'd be so cool. It's like sitting over a cauldron, just whipping up a batch of blood or snot. Like that sounds like a really cool job. I don't know how much career you can make out of it, but some people clearly do. Professional snot mixer. That would be a lot of fun. All right, so clip this guy up. Oink. You can just sort of float over here gently. So again, I'll clean this brush off. I'm getting much more it's an explosive. I know, wouldn't that be so cool to have like your license to do explosive stuff? Giblets. And I just, every time I read stories about like how they come up with stuff, like what's a really good, blood recipe? Well, it depends. If you're working outside in the sun, you want to mix like Caro syrup and red food coloring and something else. But if you're indoors under these lights, you might want to try this other thing instead. Totally cool stuff. All right, so now we're going to lay down some metal. The limited amount of lead belcher that I've got left. Write that down too. Oh, you know what? I found out today because they got in touch with me. You can stream on Amazon. I'm gonna do it once. I swear to God. All you can use is your phone. You can't do a setup like this. You just like put your phone out. But I'm gonna do it once just to see what it's like. Stream on Amazon. And what's funny is I wonder if I can just set my phone up next to me while I'm doing this over here and just now. So here's the deal. Like, I'm buying, I don't think I'm going to do this tomorrow. So it sounds like way too soon, but I bought this airbrush on Amazon, getting delivered from Amazon, bought the paints for it, bought the mask. Like I literally could go on as a quote unquote influencer and paint using this airbrush and this mask and just sort of review it while I'm going on Amazon. How weird is that? Get this in the shot. It's hard enough for me to get this crap I'm doing in one shot, but I'm going to try it at some point. Now, the thing is, like, what it does is they do give you a really nice landing page. So, like, if I ever want to show off the stuff that I use, which I am going to do, I have a bunch of affiliate links and stuff. It gives you a really nice homepage for that. So you can just land it all there. You can point to other videos and stuff. It's basically like a front page kind of portal to my own little section of Amazon, which I think is kind of neat. And I was really hoping I wouldn't have to do a bunch of like if I want to get any sort of affiliate stuff going, I don't want to be like every single video that I do be like, look at this brush, I got it from blah blah blah. I don't want to do that ever, but to just have one place where all that stuff is and just one link that goes to it, especially because I couldn't get the freaking legit storefront to work on YouTube, that'd be kind of cool. I mean, I'm gonna. I mean, I'm not going to change who I am. I'm still going to do the same stuff and paint the same things. I mean, I bought my Hellbrute model. I buy a bunch of paints. I bought a bunch of brushes. I bought all the materials, a lot of them on Amazon. If they don't like it, they can tell me to not have a funny page there. Get what you pay for, Maury. I'm direct. Exactly. No, it's so part of the reason I think it's hilarious and why I want to do it is that most of the people that do this stuff are like on Amazon are like like legit influencers who just talk about like, I just opened this new pack of this like air freshener for my car. Like, let's go investigate it. I'm just gonna be like, yo, dog, I bought an airbrush. Like, you know, watch me paint some crap for a while? Sure. All right, come aboard. I bought a Hellbrute. Like, let's put it to a vote on Amazon. Do you want me to use the weird whip chainy things or a super hammer that crushes guys' heads in? Just see how Amazon folk handle it. But the neat thing is, um, and I've seen this in play because it's some of the functionality is relatively new, and I actually think parts of it are really cool. Is that they will push influencers a bit, and so like if they see that someone is searching for a bunch of stuff that does kind of match your list of crap, they'll put your influencer page in the person's search for stuff. So let's say like I review sweatshirts all the time, and like I'm a huge fan of like Champion sweatshirts. Like you could end up in someone's search for Champion sweatshirts, and then when they buy them through your front end, you get a small commission on it, which I think is neat. Oh man, you know me. Like I'm absolutely the algorithm can't cope with the stuff that I do. What I do makes no sense algorithmically. I've gone from a long form, edited, no face, painting instructional ish thing to like hour long lore videos. That's a bunch of 40K there already. Well, so that's the thing. There's plenty of 40K stuff on the Amazon store. Plenty of it on Amazon. I don't know that there's a lot of people as part of this influencer program doing it. In fact, I sense there isn't. And like the hope is people come to your channel, you've got a little bit of video content there, you can stream to it, which is hilarious. Um, yeah. You're basically the thing you don't get out of Amazon, like you barely get it out of the reviews. It's like, oh, do I have a trusted person that is like actually reviewing this thing? And the Amazon reviews are pretty flippin' hit or miss, if I'm being honest. Like the amount of reviews that I see that absolutely tank a product because the person clearly didn't use it right. It's like, whereas like as an example, if I was going to buy an airbrush right now and I saw that there was this page with this guy talking about, hey, I just brought this airbrush and I could watch like 20 minutes of him using it, and then the link is right there to buy it. Um, I think there's a lot of power in that. I think there is. Bronze tanks, bronze tanks, bronze tanks. Yeah, bronze tanks. You can sit. But the main reason I want to do it is because it was presented to me, and I'm like, just a curious nerd. Yeah, so Maury, they're coming back. They're coming back right now. I've been waiting. Been waiting. The Necron one was decent. Um, Not my finest work, but it was still pretty good. I should have made it longer. I went back and like I saw all these quotes I should have dropped in there too. It was very quote light, but I was trying to get the hypothesis out. Um, the volume 2 of the End and the Death, which is the trilogy um, ending the whole Horus Heresy. Volume 2 just came out, and I'm like pouring through it right now, and I'm absolutely going to start. Look at this guy. I'm going to do like a multi-part thing about the End and the Death. And Volume 3, which is allegedly the last one, like probably doesn't come out till late next year, but I'm going to get a leg up on it and basically do a bunch of them that are essentially about the beginning and the end, essentially, of the Horus Heresy. Let's see how that goes. Just painting stuff in. How did I do that side? Always go back and check your work. Did I avoid it? No, I just did it inconsistently. God Got me talking about the Horus Heresy, and I stopped paying attention to what I was painting, or the camera shot, or anything. So the end of the death is the end of the Siege of Terra, which is the end of the Horus Heresy. It's when Horus actually finally shows up with his big crazy chaos army. All of Terra starts going down the crapper, getting like pulled into the warp, and Sanguinius gets murked, and the Emperor gets mortally wounded, and Horus gets jacked up, and then Chaos has to run away. The end of the whole thing. It's like, have a nice day. We're finally at that point where it's actually going to happen in the books. It's insane. What a time to be coming on board to this whole craziness. So I now have 2/3 of that story. Basically, this one, you can tell by the cover. This is the one that covers everything up to Sanguinius getting killed. He's like this super beloved Primarch with wings. Because if you're a master geneticist, you might as well. So here's the thing. This is where it's like an exceedingly interesting, from a business perspective, IP. The Horus Heresy books, I don't remember when they started, but it's not that long ago. I mean, years ago, but not that long ago. If you look at it for realsies, a lot of the lore was just in the rule books. All the stuff just piling in through the rule books. The same way like D&D books have like short snippets about things that happen, but then if you read like the books that take place in the Forgotten Realms, you get all this extra color. And so you buy the rule book, and it's like, hey, if you want to play this faction, like it was once led by this guy Sanguinius. He was awesome and he was beloved, but he's dead now in the 40,000s years. And like he fell to Horus, and then like the next version of the chapter rule book like tells you a little bit more and some more interesting stuff. But it was never novelized, and so a lot of it is just like has been waiting for that the whole time. So almost all the forwards that I've read and afterwards in a lot of the Horus Heresy books are the authors talking about like, because I read a few at the beginning of the arc. They're all talking about like, this is a crazy. Oh yeah, it's absolutely so. But the story's been being told out through, I don't know, 80 books or something like that. But I want to say that maybe like 2006, maybe later, maybe like 2013 is sort of when the books started coming out. Like they finally decided to novelize what was all backstory. It is cursed by hype, but it turns out that a lot of the books are like genuinely good. For a while, the books that were really, really popular were ones about the modern 40k day, and it's all these like you get all these guys screaming about heretics, and that was very light-handed. Guys screaming about heretics, but it's true. You get like the Inquisition and all that. And the Horus Heresy was just the backdrop. But then they decided to cover it in novels. It did amazingly well. It was super popular. And then they were like, oh, well, if it's that popular, we might as well, make a version of the tabletop game that's the Horus Heresy, which they did. And it's pretty popular. It does well. But that whole book series, like, the Horus Heresy books go up to the point that Horus shows up, I think, in orbit around Earth, or maybe it's like when he knocks out not knocks out, but subdues the moon. And then the Siege of Terra books are all about the war that happens on the ground. So long story short, I'm about 1/3 of the way through The End and the Death, Part 2, which is 2/3 of the way through The End of the Death as a trilogy, which is all the way through the entire arc of the Horus Heresy. And there's a lot of callbacks to the very first couple books. Imagine to successfully hijack a painting live. Talk about So what's wild is the whole term "the end and the death" comes up in the very first book by the very first guy who runs into the very first known case in the Space Marines of like some dude getting possessed by forces from the warp. Um, they go to this planet where these people worship this weird god. It's a bunch of different authors. It's a bunch. So the final trilogy is written by one guy. His name's Dan Abnett, I think. He wrote the very first book, and he wrote a lot of the sort of pivotal books throughout. And then the trilogy is just on him. And it was supposed to only be 2 books. But, I mean, I'd milk that shit too. Gently touching my model. These coats look good. Yep, that's pretty light, and it's supposed to be. Why don't we... I think I want to start with the fleshy parts. Flesh is good. I did miss a spot or two, as I'm seeing now. Are they more permissive with, than George Lucas with their stuff? I mean... So here's the thing. Like, discussing... You can discuss any book, and, like, no one can stop you. As far as including actual stuff that they did, then you start crossing a weird line. I can, if I got dunked on, let's say Games Workshop had it out for me, I could say Space Marine as many flipping times as I want. What I cannot do is just like grab a bunch of their pictures and throw them in and like leave them. It is pretty dry. It is. It's not cured dry, but it's pretty dry. It's like dry to the touch, but I'm putting more chemicals on it, so like if you're not super sure, it can get a little bit squirrely, but I'm safe. This stuff goes pretty quick, and this room is hella dry. Now that the heat's running in my house dries out horribly. One of my jobs this weekend is get all the humidifiers out and running 24/7. All right. Try to make sure this is in the shot. So this is Gilliman flesh, and I'm not going to put this on super thick all over the place, but you can see like it's pretty dark in some spots, and then as you smooth it out, it's got a really wide range of darkness to it. So it certainly gets into those divots a lot, and if I wanted to do that, that'd be cool. But I just I want it more to just hug all the buboes and stuff like that. So you see me like plop a chunk down and then just scoot it around. This whole band here is going to be Warplock bronze, so if I hit it, no biggie. Yeah, so here's the thing. Like, are you talking what content I can create relative to the lore that they have, or like what one of their authors does? Because all of their book stuff is through the Black Library, which is just them. They own it. Isn't it? It's so satisfying, dude. So satisfying. It's like, wow, look at this nondescript mess. Like, oh, look, it almost looks like you're an artist now. Good job, Timmy. It really is. It's fascinating. Yeah, the Games Workshop just like owns that whole thing. They contract authors to write, and it's like a crew of them. All of those books. So like if I wanted to write fanfic, I mean I might run into some trouble there, but as far as the books go, you're working with Games Workshop, Black Library Studios, whatever entity. Yeah. So it's interesting to me because the authors are like they are very different authors, and there's a level of consistency that Games Workshop maintains, the Black Library, but they are very different authors, um, and everyone's got their own sort of like I prefer this one to that one kind of jam going, which I think is great. I think it's awesome. Um, but this guy Dan Abnett like talks in like crazy. I've heard a lot of people describe it as gothic, But I have to look up so many flippin' words to keep up with these books. So many words. And they're in English. Like that guy heavily, he goes hard in the paint on words. Alrighty. Flesh be flesh. And it's okay to be a little lazy around where you're going to hit with metallics next. I always keep saying that, but I mean it. Hey, thanks, Joe. Yeah, I mean, it's Gilliman flesh, which is pretty good stuff, but yeah, uh, it does. And my first try with it was on this Myphitic Blight Hauler, and I'm trying to get somewhat close, but a little bit different. But man, I love Death Guard stuff because it's like demonic, gross flesh. Um, and so this one's a little lighter for right now. I think with that one, I did 2 coats of this, but it's like a little tongue in cheek because the Death Guard hate Gilliman, and Gilliman hates the Death Guard. So I try to use as much Gilliman flesh. I have this strange obsession with all the paints that are named after people. Um, but you can lay it on thicker. Like I'll just do it. I can scooch it in a second. But you can lay it on thicker, like in this spot, and you get like a much closer to like leather sort of tone to it. I'll just scooch it up a little bit. You can see how haphazard I am with my models because I'm not good, but I have a lot of fun. I just smooth that out. So you can get a little bit darker with it if you want. It's all just a matter of like how thick you lay it on, and because it's a contrast paint, like it's hugging that line right there. All right. Which I'm not going for that right now in this pass, but yeah, it's good stuff. And man, when I put some nasty like snot colored boils on these dots, chef's kiss, chef's kiss. Good stuff. All right, so I think I got all the fleshy parts I wanted for now. Instantly gross, exactly. Yeah, just living the dream. Set that on its side very gently and see if I can still hang on to this model in some obscure way. If I can't, then it'll go back on the clips and I'll work on weapons for a bit. But my other ringer is probably my favorite wash, even more so than Agrax Earthshade. Even more so. Seraphim Sepia. That's how I get my armor to look the way it does. Even though it's kind of biological looking armor. And this stuff is neat because it's not too dark. You can still go back with a darker wash later, and it's absolutely fine if I hit the tops of these teeth. I'll hit them with something darker, probably Skeleton Horde later. And that way they start, start looking like my coffee cigarette stained teeth if you hit the base of them. This stuff is just like, I do not want bubbles on it. But it just gets into all the cracks. I'm getting excited and I'm like paying no attention to where the freaking camera is. I get very excited with Seraphim Sepia. Yeah, just lay that stuff in there on that armor. And now it's got like a sort of, not bleached bone, obviously, but like it's bone that's been out for a long time. And it's pulling up a little bit, so I don't want it to look like candy. But I tend to lay it on pretty heavily and then dab some off my brush and then just come back with a slightly drier brush and just dab a little bit and just pick up any, you want it to go where it wants to go because it's a wash. Better to lay it on a little heavy and then pull some back. Now you can start to see, it's a pretty light wash. You can start to see there's like those 3 circles right there, these little pock marks. And that gets you a lot closer to, like most of my Death Guard are like that, not all green. They've got some of this sepia going on some parts. It just breaks the model up a little bit. Like this guy, like I did the same. You barely see any of this thing, so it's monstrous. But I broke it up as well. Like I love Death Guard green, but it's a bit much and starts looking like, it's cool also, but having your whole army just be like that dark murky green, I don't know. Like I'm not an artist, but that to me just doesn't quite sit right. All right, so all these armor plates and this whole turbine fan thing will get Seraphim Sepia too. And if you bear with me for just a couple minutes while I get to this last little bit, sort of full thesis will be unleashed. That sounds dramatic. It is kind of. Mortarion actually did not get. He got some amount of wash. He didn't get this one all that much. I don't even fucking remember. I should go back and watch the 16 hours of footage I did freaking painting that model. What a zoo that was. He got a decent amount of. I bought all kinds of weird crap. Like I had to buy blue and like purples and stuff to do that, which, as you may have guessed by all my other models, I was in short supply on those. Didn't really have so many colors per se. No, you know what I used on him? His, Christ, I think his wings were iron rack, which is this exactly, but they got dry brushed the daylights out of. I don't even know, man. I think it was iron rack. They got so many washes on it. You know, I'm gonna hold them side by side. Let's see what they look like. Yeah. I don't trust myself anymore. They definitely got they got Gilliman flesh on them. They got that, but super light, and because his wings are very smooth, I could brush it on super thin. And then they got 8 million kinds of wash and all that stuff. But pursuant to my point earlier about how I always like to use stuff that models are named after paints, he got a lot of Mortarion grime. That was the big experience of that model, was learning how to use that wash. So just dabbing this stuff in here. Oh yeah, your underbelly's looking tight, dude. Just lay it in pretty heavy, but then use the brush to just sort of pick some up and move it around, pick some up, move it around. I mean, it's not exactly like it, but if you do interior wall work with a roller, like you lay it on pretty heavy and then you just keep driving over the spots that you already hit. This looks a little squirrely, but I like it. Man, this model is painful to hold. That spike's going right in my thumb. Suffering for my art. Okay, so here's the main point I want to get to with my next wash, is that it's not a dramatic difference, but it's noticeable. Gilliman flesh, Reichland flesh shade. Somewhere in here there's snakebite leather? No. Skeleton horde. Alright. So here's the punchline. I used the same undercoat of Iron Rack skin, which has a slightly green hue. And if I move far enough away, dab some of this on my web palette. Some of this around the base of all of these bony things. It does a little bit. As it cures in, it does. I quickly like brushed over it a little bit more to sort of illustrate that you can get it to go darker. So I did add a little bit more to it. But it does get a little darker as it cures. I went super thin on Mortarion with it, if I remember correct. But I'm old, so don't trust my memory. That's why I record everything. These teeth here, I said I'd hit with a little dab here and there of Skeleton Horde on top of the Seraphim Sepia, which I'm doing right now. And I'm just pushing the brush. Brush is wet. Don't have to swipe with it. Like you can see those teeth popping out now. Look at that. That's like 6 cups of coffee and 2 packs of cigarettes a day. That's good stuff. So the darker the wash you use, the more it will cover in. But you'll see in like just a minute or two, that stuff is soaking in right now. Soaking in nicely. So, yeah. So what you can see, and I should be able to turn this around without screwing it up. And if I screwed it up, I'll fix it. All the same base. You've got Seraphim Sepia on the metal ceramite parts. You've got this Skeleton Horde as like the base on the teeth. You've got Gilliman flesh, yeah, it's wiping off on me, as the skin. So it's the same primer. All these things will basically dry up All these washes are what's going to be makes the difference. But I did find a place that I missed with Seraphim Sepia. Fun stuff. And while I'm not a speed painter, I'm really just kind of haphazard. I do try to, I don't know, like I have the utmost respect for people that have like huge collections of paint. But I don't. It's not because I'm poor. It's that like I haven't learned enough about color to really need that many. So I'm not trying to go fast, but I am trying to go simple and stick with hopefully not too many paints all the time. I don't want to get reliant on like 80 different red shades. I want to learn how to use like 2 or 3 decently. Would be nice. Part of that though is being able to go through and say like, I'm going to use this one base coat, but I'm going to wash it several different ways and learn that way. So I'm trying to find a style, and I'm little by little, I'm doing it. I'm going to squish this in a little bit further. There we go. Those teeth, whew, looking good. And I can later come back, do a little bit of red on the end of them, and it looks like they've been chomping. Like they've been chomping. All right, let me just loosen this up a little bit. Some water on the end of there. And I can just sort of test how much this is glopping into place with a little bit of water. Yes, I get consistency by using fewer paints. That is absolutely true. All right, yeah, just testing there. It's going to be a few minutes for that to dry, but I could use a sip of tea, and I can clip this guy up. Like, I have the utmost respect for folks that are like really good at painting, but I have the absolute realization that I'm not there yet. I really enjoyed painting the Infernus set with just, it's the worst looking stream of all time. This is my first one, I think. Painting the Infernus set live, because you get like 5 paints, and one of them is the stuff you put on the base, one of them is a wash, and then like 3 colors. But you learn a lot with very few tools. And my whole jam is kind of learning the hard way. Get this knot out of my shoulder. The next step, my dark, grim dark future, is time for Warplock Bronze, my old favorite, one of my favorite metallics, if not my favorite. I still have a bunch of lead belcher to do on, that guy's precarious, on all this guy's spindly little legs that he stands on, but I'm going to let this guy dry a little bit before I get down to that business. That's scary. Your stuff is consistently looking good. That means the world to me. I've tried to keep it super simple, even going way back to when I was like my first few Poxwalkers, my first few Plague Marines. So read the title of this. You want to know what I didn't put in it anymore? You may be onto a zeitgeist here. All my other streams, I think all my other streams say beginner painting in them. And today, I didn't put beginner painting in. I'm not getting good, but I don't feel like I'm a beginner yet. I don't think that's fair anymore. I put the time in. I certainly feel good, but I look at far too much amazing, devastatingly amazing models to call myself good yet. Plus, then I would ruin my whole channel at that point. Start a new one, be like 40K to 80K. Yeah, exactly, which I think is fantastic. I mean, I've been at this for 6 or 7 months. In my spare time, not only never went to art school, but didn't really even take art classes. All engineering and mathy stuff. Shaking this shot, aren't I? Yeah. Sorry about that. I gotta get a steadier setup. There we go. The absolute grim darkness. Yes, that's the metallic that I'm using. This stuff is so good. So good. Devastatingly dark. And pretty darn grim. This brush is hurting. I'm just going to give him a little bit of thinner. See if I can still use him. This guy might be destined for basing work soon. Yeah, April or so. Like, I would say I'm pretty okay now. Like, pretty okay. Like, in legit. Like, I would be ecstatic if someone was like, oh, is like somebody good at painting models? He's okay. I'd be like, yeah, let's do this. All right, let's get these guns going. So I'm going to hit the whole end of this bad boy. Man, I love this color. It's got all this subdued, way in the background red. People talk about copper being red. This is like dark chocolate cherry dessert stuff. So you get a little bit of contrast for free. Not for free because you chose the color, but with all this green going on, the subtlety of having a little bit of red in there, it's pretty nice. I dig it. Oh yeah, brush. You're on your last leg. I'm not gonna worry about beating you up. You've done enough, son. Die on your feet in action. Yeah, I'm pretty hyped to get an airbrush. I think it'll be fun. I think it's a good next step. I'll actually be a little disappointed if all of a sudden my stuff starts looking amazing because of an airbrush. Be like, man, like I'm glad I'm always going to use brushes, but I'm going to look a little bit side eye at some of the stuff that I've seen if it's like, if that's all it takes. Because I won't, likewise, I'm not like being super self deprecating, but like I have to learn how to use this thing. Like I'm going to use it poorly for a while. So if all my stuff miraculously starts looking good, I'm going to be like, ah, maybe that's the difference between a good artist and a not so good artist is having a few $100 to spend on a toy. I told my wife I'd paint her car with it. Be like, yeah, I could paint like a dark plague spitter. Yeah, dude, this thing is dope. I spit plagues. Dude, you could absolutely light people up with 2 of these things. I gotta look up what they do again. I mean, the stats aren't crazy on it, but like with a pair of these guys, it's like 12 hits. Sweet. Sign me up, actually. 12 hits, and what are the keywords on this mother? Where was I? I don't even think I have it. Sorry, I'm just typing over here. No, not Myphitic Blight Hauler. Foetid. Bloat drone. Zoom in. Yeah, the Plague Spitter's anti-infantry 2-up ignores cover. Torrent. You don't even roll to hit. I mean, the range on it's only 12 inches, but you can fly. You can fly. It just barfs out plague all over, folks. So each one of these plague spitters It is it's range 12. Um, oh no, I'm sorry, it's not 6 attacks. It's D6 attacks. You still got to roll it. So like with two of them, you're averaging like 3 on each, so like 7-ish attacks. But still, it's strength 6, it's AP -1, and it's damage 1. But you get a pair of these bad boys, so like on average, you're hitting 7 times, or yes, you're hitting 7 times. But it's anti-infantry 2 up. They're pretty nasty. I mean, the only catch is you got to get this, like, this guy's not super strong. You got to get him in close. But it's gnarly. And it's certainly good for Overwatch. Get down to business. Alright, this part will be a little bit weird, but I'm going to do it anyway. I need to get around these skulls as best I can. Some of this stuff. Kind of around there. My hand's kind of shaky. We're going to do it. We're going to do it, fam. And this brush is not in the best shape, but neither am I. So I'm not going to complain about the tool. Just get in there and do the work. Dan, you bounce whenever, buddy. You're on late. I desperately appreciate you hanging, but like, man, you're a trooper. You're always welcome, but whenever you gotta rack out, you rack out, buddy. The other side of the ocean. All right. Yeah, it's not my finest work. Sometimes having a hooked brush end is a little helpful. There we go. Get your beauty sleep, homie. You're gonna wake up dreaming of plague spewers. It's looking pretty decent. What else do I need to hit? I think I might have to drop away from this gun and work on the next one for a little bit because I really need to hang on to it by this end. Oh, so bronzy. Such a good color. Yeah, I was just saying before let's hope not. Told my wife, I'm getting an airbrush. I could paint like a falcon on a car, or like some half-naked lady, and my wife's like SUV. She'd probably let me do it, to be honest. My wife has like a pretty awesome sense of humor. And is not really doesn't put on airs. Like if I really wanted to, she'd be like, "Yeah, go for it, whatever." I'm not gonna though. No. Ignore cover means that if models are like partially obscured, they don't get the benefit of cover. Um, Line of sight completely is what the plague burst crawler has, which is indirect fire. That's pretty nasty. I used that to great effect in the game that I played. Yeah. All right. I keep wanting to grab over there, but I can't. I can't do it. Let's finish this little metal bit in here. So the other thing I need to hit is these tanks. And I'm just gonna have to be patient and wait. Yep. Be patient. Follow your own advice. All right. I will clip this guy up to a section that I didn't just paint. Keep on rocking. One thing I will show real quick, because it has not been a lot of time, but it's been some time, is that you can see that those washes are like settling in. And so, like, this is not wet around here anymore. That stuff is all soaked in. You can see it's like almost like pushed back far enough where it's almost like gums around this. And what I'll end up doing is when I start adding color around here, it'll start getting tiny little dabs of black wash but not laying it on heavy like I was before, and it'll start like defining the edge of a lot of stuff. There you go. That's pretty close, but I'm gonna make it a little bit darker with a wash over it. But yeah, that guy's coming along. He's still a little wet on the inside there. I just wanted to sort of give him a little spin around now that he's had time to think about it. Sounds like a plan, dude. Sounds like a plan. If I fall asleep, fall asleep. All right, so this guy I'm going to go from the opposite side. Hit these tanks. Dan, you better hit like before you go to sleep, man. Just kidding. Gotta get my likes. Dude, my mysterious stream that turned itself on this morning before I was even awake got one like before I pulled it down. So weird. Be good, Dane. Had a model in it. Yeah, it's funny because like some of my streams get like no likes, which is absolutely fine. Like I think it's ridiculous that I should expect my friends to like press the like button every time they show up. Like that just sounds like weird, pedantic, whatever. But like it had a model in it, and it didn't have me in it. It had the like before I showed up. All good, homie. If you can find rest, let it come to you. Metallic chocolate, looking delicious. But yeah, I noticed that when I got your message. What? It's got a like? Sweet. It is tempting to do like to just leave the camera on at some point. Like if I have a week off and I actually had time to do it, just like belly up on a huge project, like a Titan or something. Well, no, well, if I had a week and I plowed 10 hours a day into it, just like leave the thing running. It's just like some madman who's just painting all day. All right, that was super sloppy. And I don't know how I feel about the tanks being this color, but we're just going to press forward. I can do cleanup on the green stuff in a bit. Probably not tonight, but they can be cleaned up. Now I'm actually going to go all the way around the tops of these tanks. I'm literally hiding it under my head. I'm like trying to get a modeling position by hiding all this stuff behind where my head is. I was so used to having the camera out for a while, doing all the diorama crap, that like now with it close in, I'm not even aiming. Like I know that I'm supposed to be basically down right of that A5. I'm also engaging with my audience, so I'm spending a lot of my time with my head turned this way. Yeah, good stuff, man. Mr. Bughead was there. He was just chilling on the desk. Man, that was a little like I found it funny, but man, that was a little creepy. Alrighty, getting metally. This stuff is just delicious. Peek my other guy, see what I hit on him. Alright, so all the way up to that tube. That should be good. What time is it? Is it bad? Nah, it's not bad. That's right, I don't have to work tomorrow. It is Veterans Day observed. I didn't realize until yesterday. Someone had to tell me, like, no, you're not going to be in on Friday. I was like, dude, I took all last week off and 2 days before that. Dude, it's a holiday. Ooh. A holiday, you say? Yeah. So Veterans Day is technically on Saturday, but it's one of those like most companies give it to you the Friday before if it's on a weekend, which is like not to get super political, but it's like the only thing veterans in this country get is Veterans Day. It's like we take the worst care ever of our veterans. There's a holiday. People going around saying thank you for your service, but like not doing anything to take care of veterans. It's a little weird. Like, war's not really my thing, but I sure as heck wouldn't send someone else out to fight without making sure I could take care of them when they got back if they did so. Anyway, that's my political soapbox moment. So people at my company from the UK get it off, but it's a flex day because the Americans get it off. A lot of the UK people at my company will get like, and it happens a lot. They try to like have some amount of equity with holidays, and basically Brazil gets like 3,000 holidays. So a lot of times we just get arbitrary ones. But for something like Veterans Day, the UK folks and Canada get it off too, because we're a global company and they're trying to have some amount of like similar number of vacation days between people. But yeah, one of the producers on my team, I had to be like, you get tomorrow off. You're out, dude. So, how does this look with its tubes? In both cases, I'm a little squirrely on it. All right, well, I'm going to leave it. I still need to get around these three skulls on this icon. Brazil's awesome. Dude, they just totally set the pace for all the holidays the rest of us get. They're really doing the Lord's work there. Love it. I freak people out with my Brazil knowledge at my job now. I gotta remind them, I'm like, man, I worked almost exclusively with Brazilians for 2 years. I don't think I know about Dentist Day. Please. I don't think I drop in with a boa tarde every once in a while. Keep people on their feet. I do. Bom dia, boa tarde. My accent's terrible, but I immediately look up at the Zoom call and see a bunch of people like looking at me weird. Like, did you just say that? Yeah, said it. What? It's all right. I mean, I've heard enough examples of it being said. It's also late in the day, so like my brain is fried. I do a little mental prep before I actually do it on a call. Like, man, if you can't like say good day or good afternoon to someone, like it's not that hard to learn that stuff. I still struggle with it. What is it? It's like saying "What's up, guys" or "Hey all." Like, is it "Hola pasao"? Pasao. Is there an L at the end of it or something like that? I don't know. That one I never really grokked. Hola pasao. I don't know. The delay on here is enough where I'll find out later if I got that right. So one of these guys in Brazil's history was known as the teeth puller. Hola Pasal? Pasal? Hola Pasal. You do have weird nasal sounds. But anyway, this dude in history who's like fighting for independence, I guess? He was like a former dentist or something. Yeah, Tiradentes. Happy Dentist Day. I'm I'm not culturally inept, or at least culturally mute. I am culturally inept. It's funny though, like I'm a huge. Actually, Dan and I were talking about this earlier, like just talking about heavy metal. Like huge Sepultura fan, and people in Brazil think that like somehow Sepultura wasn't like a global phenomenon for a while if you like metal at all. All right. So here's the question at hand. I'm tempted to add a little bit more shade. Yeah, like people I work with, I just like I'll like sing some Sepultura to them, and they're shocked that I'm a metalhead. And it's like, well, like yeah, I have gray hair, but that's kind of when metal was coming out. Makes sense. And B, yeah, um, I don't know if this is actually going to work on here, so I'm going to try it in a little bit of a undercarriage spots. I think it might be nice. It's an extra shade that I'm adding to the fleshy bits. It'd be like, you know who Sepultura is? I'm like, man, they toured up here with like Sepultura for years. Was like part of almost all the big metal festivals up here. Spent more time up here than they were spending in Brazil. Oh yeah, let me teach you something and then take it away from you. It actually looks pretty good. So I basically hit this little spot with a wash. The Gilliman flesh, while it does hug things, it's a contrast paint, so it's a legit paint. This guy I'm going to make a little darker. Yeah, always correct me when I go off the map. My sleepy head. So what I'm going to do, lay a bunch of this on here now, over it, and that will seal the deal. It's funny because I have long hair now, and I've had long hair at several points in my life, but now it's just because of COVID. I was like, well, I'm not going to go to the barber. Um, I'll just let it go, and like I'm not going into work, so who cares if I wear a hat for 6 weeks straight, a month straight, whatever. So this is a dark wash. This is going to like get into every little crevice and up against the edge of stuff, and start making even more stuff scream up. Um, But yeah, I've donated my hair 3 times in my life. Whenever I get tired of this mop, it'll be the 4th time. I know nothing about metal, not sure why. I mean, you're either into it or you're not. Like metal is and I don't mean in a bad way, but it's like polarizing. Like you either desperately want to hear people screaming at the top of their lungs and with their amps all jacked up or not. And that's not to say you'll never be into it, but it's not 100% about like or dislike any particular band in it. Like it's its own kind of experience. No doubt. No doubt. All right, so this is good and fleshy. Let me just put a little bit more of this shade in here. Yeah, the grim dark future. Metal fans, sure, why not? That works exactly. I just want to say, and this is presuming there's no one else lurking out there. We are in 4 continents right now. 4. Amazing. How many continents are there? Like 7? I guess which is solid. Solid band. Solid band. All right, so that flesh is it's fleshy. Look at that stuff. And all that wash is just sunken into those spots. It's dope. Yeah, Cannibal Corpse and Carcass. It's interesting because like the really like deathy stuff was like sort of one of the circles, and then like the classics, like Slayer, Sepultura for me, like old Metallica, Megadeth, obviously with like Slayer being like in a even further different vein, was all just like really really good stuff. Um, but yeah, Cannibal Corpse and Carcass, awesome. I listened to a lot of Napalm Death, but I've found that the less I know what they're saying, the better. Yeah, it's true. I listened to a lot of Napalm Death growing up, and I find that I don't remember it as much. I don't know if it just didn't stick, but I probably listened to more Napalm Death than I did Cannibal Corpse or Carcass. Maybe I was just like drinking so much and smoking so much weed as a youth that in that one little era that I just didn't remember that spot. I have a lot of metallics to add to this, so I'm going to do that next. Oh, the 90s was such a good time. Such a good time for music. So good. There's terrible stuff out there, but like, man, you just go into a record store, believe it or not. We bought music physically, and just like, if you knew what you wanted, there was so much stuff. Oh, yeah. You'd go to the mall back when people did that. So, anyway, these goop guns, if I'm remembering correct, anti infantry 2 up means that they crit on a 2 or higher, I think. I'm not familiar with Tritium Tritium, but Slipknot I love. I absolutely love their stuff. And it's funny for several years, I sort of like fell out of heavy music for a while. So I was driving around in my car, and I started listening to podcasts for a lot. Um, and so when Slipknot came out, I didn't really get into them, and then I started listening to the radio again, and I heard a bunch of their stuff, and I was like, "This is really good." I'm a huge Pantera fan. Huge Pantera fan. When like Vulgar Display of Power came out, I was like, oh my god, this is life changing. Trivium. Okay. Yeah. Once again, like I know who they are, but I'm not super versed. Can't listen to everything, but I'll check them out. Where did I put my? Right out here. Losing my mind. Is it right in front of me? Still have some lead. Yeah, lead belcher. There we go. Give this guy a shake. I might need to add some freaking water to this. There's not a lot of you left, buddy. Lich King. A great name for a band. Or an MMO expansion. Take your pick. I'm using the mega huge brush on this because it's a whole flow of this stuff. Yeah, Disturbed is pretty solid. Pretty darn solid. Look at all this. You know, it's funny if you don't take the lawnmower front, his melee weapon is this little doop, 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 doop. Gives you a little kiss on the nose. So adorable. Yeah. So what I heard though is, oh yeah, no, you're right. I was thinking about a different rule. Yeah. So like 2 up is immortal. Like ooh. Yeah. With torrent and ignores cover. I think that's bad news. Honestly, I may just try to put this guy anywhere where he might get Overwatch, just do that. Anywhere where he can be in the way of infantry, watch him pass by. With flying, you can get around terrain pretty nicely. His move's 10. He's flying. He's also eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which he fell back. I like this guy a lot. He's fun. I'm just going to be really scared to put him on a table, given the fact that he stands up on just these threads. So many tubes. Got a little bit of a jellyfish vibe. Pain holding this thing. I feel like I've been cracking open lobsters all night. I think a lot of these tubes are going to get rusty. I think that's going to have to happen. The flesh mower is dope. It's really good. The problem with the flesh mower is that I took some big chunks off of it because I wanted to set this thing up with magnets. And Overwatch did change in 10th. And I will get to that soon. The mower is dope. Because then you can just fly in and like chew up a bunch of guys and then fall back and then charge back in, which I think is awesome. Sadly, I jacked up the mower on this guy. Maybe it'll still fit. Maybe I could suck it up and do it. I could get it to fit if I had to. But getting it with magnets was a big balk. Oh, that's why it's wrong. It's 'cause I'm doing it the right way. Derp. Like I could put the mower on him. It is pretty sweet. But I tried to do it with magnets and it didn't work out, and I had trimmed a bunch of this off. And then I thought about it a bit. I was like, well, I'll just crazy glue them on if I want to switch to the mower. I don't know. I may still figure it out. I'm giving myself a little bit of time. But yeah, Overwatch, I don't even remember all that. I think Overwatch was just, I don't even remember it in 9th because I didn't really use it. You don't like it now? It's pretty brutal now. Like, it's out to like 24 inches. Obviously, with this guy, I'd need to be within 12, which makes things a little sketchy for him. But like, when someone moves, you can either at the beginning or the end of the move, if I'm remembering it correctly, you can call Overwatch, spend a CP for it, and you get a free shot at them. But I think all you do is you only hit on 6s. But with something like Torrent, which this guy's hoses have, you don't roll to hit. You automatically hit. So all I need to do is roll my strikes. Yeah, you do have to pay for it. It's pretty potent stuff. It's pretty strong. I don't know. I mean, I can't have too strong of an opinion because I didn't play in 9th at all, so I don't have any practical good old days to go back to. So I certainly respect that. Like, take what I'm saying with a big grain of salt. I'm like, yeah, but then again, I wasn't there. So, but the game designer in me says like, ooh, you should be paying pretty dearly for that. I think the thing is, it's really worthwhile now with the right units, and really not worthwhile unless you're doing it with someone who's really built for it. But this guy certainly is when he's got his hoses on. All right. speaking of which, I'm almost out of hoses. And I'm running a little thin. It is interesting. Like, I only have a mild opinion on it. But, you know, a lot of people feel very differently on one side or another. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone gloriously loves 10th edition. Um, but like it did clean up a lot of dice rolls. Um, to me, as a beginner, I had a much easier time understanding it than when I was even trying to understand ninth. Um, but I don't really know. Don't really know. Oof, that was a miss. Sorry there, buddy. Like some of it is dumbed down a bit, that's for sure. But it depends. Still holding on to ninth, yes, indeed. And I think that's the other important thing. Like depending on how and who you're playing with, like there were people who were still playing eighth when ninth was out. I'm gonna leave my Tau rules behind. Yeah, I mean that's the cool thing. I mean, I was still playing fourth edition D&D when I was running it when fifth came out because like I enjoyed running fourth. It had a lot of things that made DMing a lot easier, a lot less overhead, and a lot of spots. I don't know too much about them, but I know their drones changed a lot. That's what I think I know. I know that I know that I know. Here we go. We are digging deep in this pot. This may be the last model I get to do with this pot of lead belcher. I'm so psyched, man. If this is it, if I've finally gone through a full pot of paint, that's a big step. I should be pulling that beginner off of my stuff. Oh, another little screw up. That was lazy. Getting tired, folks. Getting sleepy and tired. Got a little Schwabby. There we go. Yeah, it's okay to feel the burn. Yeah, the railgun was obscene. That I do remember. Get in there again. Oof. Woof. A little bit more paint on here. Sort of last little bit over here. Alrighty. On that note, I am gonna call it quits for the evening. There's enough stuff that's wet on here. Our forward progress seems like a bad idea. And I'm also getting pretty squirrely in the head, trying to remember what to do next, which is a pretty good sign that I'm tired. So on that note, I find a place to clip this guy up. There you go, buddy. Let him sort of sit casually. Next time, we'll do all kinds of stuff. Take it easy, man. We'll do all kinds of stuff in terms of a lot of details. There's still a few little metal bits here and there to go around. There's just, yeah, they have actual AI. They're pretty rad. You haven't tempted me yet, Lizard Wizard, to make a Tau army yet, but I do want to pick up a couple models just to make some clean lines. And their aesthetic is dope. But anyhow, next time will be a bunch of details, fun stuff, and we'll put this guy on a base, hopefully. Call him done. Yeah, Dane. It's only 12, 1, 2, 3. It's only 4 a.m. for you. It's time to get up. Go to work. Go to the diner. Have some breakfast. Anyhow, folks, thanks a bunch again, and we'll see you sometime soon.